And away we go. It is the BCJ podcast, part 1 of 2 today, right here on BearcatJournal.com. You know the deal. If you are down at the banks, hanging out, taking in a Reds game, seeing a concert, whatever it may be, make sure you get in and see our good friends at the Holy Grail. While you're there, get yourself a Cincy Light. That Cincy Light purchase, our good friends at the Holy Grail will donate an extra 50 cents for every beer into the Cincy Reigns NIL Collective. So make sure you are supporting those that support us and go see our good friends at the Grail. All right, why are we here in the middle of the afternoon, you might ask? Special guest today, fresh off of beating up somebody probably at jiu-jitsu. We have a Bearcat legend, a guy that was here for the first run of Glory Days. He was the 2011 Big East Co-Defensive Player of the Year. He was first team All Big East in 2011. He was a second team All-American. He was a Super Bowl champion that hopefully does not put his Super Bowl rings in a sock and into a tub of Skyline Chili 3-ways. He is none other than Derek Wolfe. Derek, what's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Coming from jiu-jitsu, I know the middle of the day is tough. We wanted to do it last night, but my wife is doing college visits with my stepdaughter right now. So I was like, okay, now, and then my nanny couldn't stay. So I was like, okay, well, it's either you get me and my 5-year-old or just, and that's going to be a nightmare. That's going to be an absolute nightmare. She's going to be singing Frozen and Taylor Swift now. I mean, it's just like, you're not going to get a free second to talk. So it's nice to be on here, man. I was just in Cincinnati, with Travis and Jason for that, we're talking about the Super Bowl ring in the sock, but for their New Heights show, that live show they did, we were just in town for that, for Letterman's weekend. And it was so nice to catch up with the guys and get to see campus and see how things have changed around campus. Just like you just talked about before the show started, the NIL money, that's a game changer, so we have to, if we want to continue to have a good program and get recruits, we got to come up with some cash, right? So
exactly.
I mean, that's just the name of the game now. And that's pretty. I think it's great what Cincy Reigns is doing. That's phenomenal. Holy Grail was actually the college bar we used to go to, right there on campus all the time. Uncle Woody's was our other go-to, but Holy Grail we used to have some good times there as well.
They have been with us since 2007. They've been a sponsor here, so we were with them in Clifton and then followed them downtown. I don't know now if they have the biggest bar the best bar in the city.
Yeah, I know.
Right across from the Red Stadium now.
Yeah, I've been down there. It's crazy to me how the Over the Rhine has changed.
Yeah,
it's called OTR now. I'm like, what is
it? Called the Hood.
OTR. I was like, what the hell is that? It's Over the Rhine. I was like, we're not going there. We're not supposed to go there. And they're like, no, it's way different now. And I'm like, okay. And we went there, and I was like, it looks like Mount Adams down there.
It's hipster city. And look, if you won't go there, don't go there. In terms of how it was back in 2010.
Dangerous. It used to be pretty dangerous to go down there.
Well, there's luxury apartments everywhere around campus, and where the team. Have you seen how the team lives now?
Oh, it's unreal. Blows my mind. I saw the basketball team they have nap pods where they can go take a nap, and I was like, what?
They have water massagers in the room with the nap pods. You can get a water massage and then hop in and take a nap.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So I love it. I'm good. Yeah, that's what you have to do to compete, though.
Yeah.
If you want to get recruits, man, you have to do it because these kids are all so spoiled now that you have to.
Meanwhile, you were living in a house with Jason and Travis and
not a single
Laros.
door locked in that house either.
No, of course not. Well, and if it did, somebody would rip it off a hinge.
Exactly. It got ripped off because somebody would show up at 3 a.m. and the damn door would be locked and they just kick it in.
We'll get into that here shortly. Let's start kind of from the beginning. First off, I hear you're doing great things. If I bring up Beaver Local, I hear you're putting some money back into the program and kind of giving back to a place that got you started.
Yeah. I put $500,000 of my own dollars back into that place. We got a new field built, new turf, new stadium, basically. Cause my $500,000 got matched by another $500,000. So we had $1 million, and they were able to do a new field, new turf. And then now we're building a $7 million facility, through grants and government assistance and stuff like that. Because it is a very impoverished area. Like it's very low income. A lot of kids kind of going through the same shit I went through as a kid, living there. So it's sweet, man. We got like a 60-yard indoor field going in there, brand new weight room, new locker rooms. We got a golf simulator going in there for the golf team. What else we got going in there? We got like a whole cardio site. It's not just for football. It's like I want everyone. I want the soccer team to do. Yeah, you could do indoor soccer games in there. You can do. It's really cool. It's going to be the best facility in the area. And, in that area, the best team is, you got Cardinal Mooney, you got Steubenville Big Red, you got Ursuline. There's a bunch of teams in that area that are pretty good. So to pull recruits into that area and get people to go there, they built a brand new high school already. So it's crazy because where my facility's going is where the old high school was. It's going right there where the old high school was. So it's awesome. It's pretty cool to me that I get something with my name on it. That's a legacy piece. It's really cool.
Sure.
And just being able to give back to those guys. When you grow up in an area like that, there's not a lot of opportunity. There's not a lot of hope. And those guys are lifting in the same weight room that I was lifting in, and it was old when I was there. I was like, dude, we're going to get them all new equipment. We're using Sornex. Bert Sorn with Sornex is a good friend of mine. They're going to help us out there and give us a good deal and hook it up. And we're going to have a brand new weight room, brand new locker room, recovery rooms, like office space and film rooms and stuff like that. So it's going to be sweet. And then there's already a complex there. And I'm just going to let that way because the wrestling is huge there. So now they can expand their wrestling room. They're like running out of room for the wrestling room. So now they can expand that whole building into a wrestling room. And I love that. I think that's great. So yeah, man, giving back is important to me. I just think it's, when you have a lot of success and you don't give back, it's kind of selfish, because there was people that kind of gave back when I was there and spent time with us and kind of gave us hope and like, hey, you can do it, So I want to make them feel the same way.
You putting in nap pods?
No, they're not getting nap pods. No. They don't even do 2-a-days anymore. They're not getting.
No, it's not allowed anywhere.
It's crazy. We used to have we didn't get nap pod. We had an ambulance.
That was nap time. The ride to the hospital. You exploded kind of a little bit on the recruiting scene late, but you didn't have a lot of buzz through the early part of it. Was there doubt? Was there frustration? Going through it, and then take us to how you landed at Cincinnati.
So I committed as a junior to Cincinnati. So yeah. I had the offers. I had the whole Big East, a couple Big Ten schools, all of the MAC. It was just when you go to a smaller school, it's just difficult to get out there. Nowadays they have all the they have a lot more there's a lot more avenues for kids to be seen. Back then it was like you just had to you had to get in front of these coaches and get them to see you, because you can watch tape, but they don't know what kind of competition you're really going against, so they know that if they go to Coleraine, they're playing against San Xavier, and they know that they're playing against the best, the best offensive lineman, but the defensive linemen are playing against the best offensive lineman in the state. Like that's just what's going on. So they didn't know what kind of people I was going against. So when I went to some camps as a junior, some coaches got to see me, and then it's kind of like a domino effect. Once one or two schools in a conference offer you, the other ones will kind of follow. So that's kind of what happened in the Big East. West Virginia and Pitt came on board, and then I was kind of waiting for Cincinnati because that's where I wanted to go. Because you remember Adam Hopple, he was I lived with his family in high school.
Right.
So his cousins, his uncle, I lived with his uncle in high school on his Black Angus farm. So I wanted to go somewhere where I knew I could play right away and make an impact. Because if I had a redshirt year, I knew I'd fuck it up. I knew that I would do something stupid and probably get in trouble. And I did a couple. I visited Morgantown and I visited Pitt and Coach Wanstadt was there at Pitt, and he was really pressing hard to get me there. But I was like, I just something about Cincinnati, and I did my official visit, and on my official visit, Travis and I became really good friends, and then Evan Davis and I became really good friends, and Dan Giordano, like we just like had the group that we had was just unbelievable. I could keep naming guys that were in that class. Isaiah Peed. John Hughes was a year ahead of us. Zach Caleris, I played against Zach in high school, so like I already knew Zach, and it was just like it felt like a natural fit for me. And I remember meeting Jason the first time. That little festival they do on campus, the Spring Fest, like the little Spring Festival.
Sigma, or
I forget what they call it, but we went to that, and me and Travis are walking. He's like, I want to introduce my brother, and Jason walks up with a huge mug of beer. And a Hawaiian shirt with his belly hanging out. And I was like, this is perfect. This is where I belong. Like, it was just so perfect. And so I decided to commit as a junior. And then there was the Big Ten started to come in my senior year. It's funny because I was already committed, so I was just playing a lot more free. And the difference between a junior and a senior in high school, there's a big difference there. And just body, like strength and size and everything. Like I just got bigger and stronger, and a lot of these teams wanted me to cut. Like Ohio State came in and they were like, "Hey, do you want to go to a basketball school or do you want to come to Ohio State?" That was like Terrell Pryor's year, and I was like,
"Yeah,
I don't know. I try to be as loyal as I possibly can and I just felt like I already committed to them. Like I'm not going to decommit, just for something more flashy. You know what I mean? It's just, and then those guys, that whole class ended up getting suspended, if you remember, for getting free tattoos. Yeah. So you think I wasn't going to be getting free tattoos?
Pay for your tattoos like a man.
Yeah. Pell Grants, baby.
Think how many tattoos you could have got with NIL.
Oh, are you kidding me? I would have been head to toe already.
So when you get to UC and you kind of start practicing and going through the whole program, what was the moment where you realized like these are grown men and I'm kind of coming in and I have to be able to compete and kind of get into that next level mindset?
Yeah, we were doing one-on-ones and I just was like, we had done workouts and stuff already, and I already knew that I was like just as strong as most of these guys, like there were some guys that were really fucking strong, but I knew that I was right there, I mean, I was bench pressing 400 pounds and squatting 575. Like I was still strong as shit, so I was like, all right, I could compete. And we were doing one-on-ones and I came off the ball and I was going against Trevor Canfield and I went to like bull rush him and he just stood there. I was like, he kind of threw me on the ground and I was like, oh shit. Okay. Like, that's when I was like, okay, I got to bring it, and I had a really unique opportunity because Terrell Bird was dealing with a 1-game suspension or 2-game suspension or something like that. So I was going to be playing a lot the first 2 games, which was great because it was a 1AA. I forget what 1AA school it was. And then it was against Oklahoma. So Sam Bradford and that crew. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. So I got that first game against that 1AA school. It just dominated, I was just out there kicking ass. Like, this is easy, and then we go to Oklahoma and I was like, they had like a whole NFL roster on the offensive line. And it was just like, that was when I was like, oh, okay. But I still was holding my own. So I knew like I belonged, you know what I mean? I was like, I knew where I belonged. And anytime we played a bigger school, I always was like, I played with a chip on my shoulder because I thought, they didn't want to show me any real love. So I'm going to punish them for it. And I just always kind of took that approach, even in the NFL. Teams that didn't draft me and said they were going to draft me and didn't, I tried to punish them when we played them. And that's the great part about playing defense. You can really punish people. Now you can't land on quarterbacks and stuff, so it's a little harder. But, back then you can make them feel it, and it was just so cool. That was the first time I've ever been on an airplane flying to Norman. So I was just in awe. And then you get to Norman, there's 100,000 fans doing the Boomer Sooner. I'm just like, holy shit, And I jumped off sides the first play. But the second
I remember that.
The second play, I got a TFL the second play. I beat the center. Like, I just got lucky, I guess. I don't know. I just guessed. I was like, I'm just going to take off and try to make a play in the backfield. And I did. I made it. I had a TFL the second play. And then it was such a good experience. And then when Bird came back, I didn't get to play as much, but I was still getting a lot of playing time as a freshman on special teams and stuff like that. And I was still getting 5 to 10 snaps a game on the defensive line. And then I started every game the next season, and that was the undefeated season, and it was just a phenomenal experience to just kind of jump right into that. I was only, 19, 20 years old, playing in BCS games, and it was just really fun. And then Brian Kelly leaves, which was like, you want to talk about, I still hate Notre Dame. Still hate them. So I had a bunch of teammates from Notre Dame, and I'm like, I hate all of you, because we had the opportunity that we had. You know what I mean? We could have beat that Florida team. We were good enough to do it. You know what I mean? They were unbelievable talent wise. They had a whole NFL roster. They got Aaron Hernandez, and they got Tebow, and they got the Pouncey twins, and they have 4 of those offensive linemen went to the NFL. They had
Tony talks about Carlos Dunlap quite a bit.
Yeah, Carlos. I mean, I don't even get started on the defense. The whole defense was, the whole defense went to the NFL. The whole thing, the whole thing. Their linebackers, their D line, everybody. So it was just I thought we had the team that could beat them, and we hung in there that first quarter, and then it got so bad. I mean, for Brian Kelly to bring us into a room and say, "Hey, you're going to the Sugar Bowl. Congratulations, number 3 team in the country. But I can't coach you." We're like, what? What do you mean you can't coach us? Oh, it was crazy. I'll never forget. Jason was like, "I vote Kerry Combs as our head coach. Kerry Combs should be the head coach." And they were just like, "No, you don't, Jason. You don't get to choose the head coach."
Jason's like, "I'll fight you for it."
Jason's like, "No, Kerry Combs is the head coach." Yeah, if anybody knows Jason knows he's the nicest dude ever. But when he's mad and passionate about something, there's no changing his mind. He's gonna lose it, and he's lost his mind. It's just it was. And if you remember that team, we had some criminals on that team. Now, we had some. That team was full of some characters now, real criminals.
So we won't mention names, but yes.
Brian Kelly surrounded himself with police officers to escort him out. It was insane. And I was just standing there really? He's just going to leave? This is bullshit. I was so mad. And we went down there to Bourbon Street, and that was just a shit show. And, there was no structure or anything. All the coaches were figuring out where they were going to be next, and
right.
doing their best to try to be, to try to get us coached and get through a practice with guys just throwing up for being too drunk, the night before. It was just such a shit show. And I was like, this is going to be bad. And it was a slaughter, we went out there and got slaughtered. I think it was, one of our DBs told me that they're telling me what route they're going to run, and I still can't stop it. I was like, it's not good. I was like, it's not good.
It's not ideal. It's not ideal.
We get through that game, and then Butch Jones comes in, and Butch Jones tells us that we don't know shit and we suck. I'm like, we're just the top 5 team in the country. What are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, you guys are all lazy and you guys don't know what you're doing. So we win 4 games.
That team didn't have bad talent.
No, we listen, here's where it all changed. DJ Woods dropped a punt in that first game against Oklahoma, and we lost by a point, and that changed everything. Remember he dropped that punt?
Oh, yeah.
That was
it changed the entire momentum of the game. You guys had him on the ropes.
You want to talk about people? We had so much talent on that team, and we had them on the ropes, and we had them beat, and we drop a fucking punt. And then they get the ball back right there and score and beat us by a fucking point. Yeah. Or I think we held them to a field goal still, and they still, because we were winning by 2 points.
Yep.
I forget how it went. I just try to erase that whole season from my memory because it was so awful.
It's actually funny though, because they're in kind of a similar situation now. I don't think Satterfield came in and told them they sucked, but you go from, the highest of highs, playing in the college football playoff, you have another year of success. They weren't as good that last year with Luke, but they were still really, I mean, it's hard to replace 9 NFL guys.
Yeah.
And then they kind of stumbled last year and did not have anywhere near the season that this fan base expects. How did you guys turn it around and go from 4-8 to you won 10, I think?
Well, it starts with embracing. You have to, so like that's the hard part, right? That first year when a guy like Butch is a very strong personality. Like I love Butch. I have so much love for him because he helped me take my game to a whole nother level. Him and Steve Stripling, playing with effort. Like I always thought I played hard, but they were like, you can play harder. And they've just like, the things that I learned about myself with him, just like, I'll tell a story real quick about, we're at Camp Higher Ground my senior year, and there's, you got me, Travis, John Hughes, Adrian Robinson. We have Isaiah Peed. Who else was there? I mean, we had a bunch of guys that were like going to get drafted, you know what I mean? And so there was the NFL coaches everywhere, lined up all over the place. And Alex Hoffman, who was another one of our roommates, drags me down by my face mask. And I jumped up and punched him as hard as I could. I just punched him in the face. And Butch loses his mind. Loses his mind. He used to carry that bullhorn, runs out there, gets in my face, and he like pulls me down. And I'm like bent over, like looking at him. And he's screaming at me like, "You idiot. That's 15 yards. You're ejected from the game. Go, get over there and run." He made me run gassers the whole practice. And I had to do that. I had NFL, and I had those scouts would like see me later, like at combines and stuff. They're like, "Dude, you ran gassers and didn't stop for like an hour and a half." And I was like, "I know." I was like,
and it was 1,000 degrees.
I was like, I had no choice. What am I going to stop it? You guys are all there. Like, if you guys weren't there, I might have like taken it easy. But I kept my helmet on and I ran them the whole time, and then full body cramped after practice, and like woke up in an ice tub with Bob Mangine. Like, come on, quit being soft. So like that story, like, that taught me like, hey, you can't, like, you're hurting the team, when you do stupid shit like that. And that's going into that senior year, the way we trained, like in the off season too, like instead of going out and partying, we would go break into the weight room. So we used to break in through Oscar Robertson Center, that little, we used to break through there. And then there was like a little back way. We'd get to the catwalk in the weight room, drop down on the squat rack.
The spiral steps, right? The spiral steps, and you walk back. Yeah. That's how I used to sneak in for basketball workouts.
Yeah. We would get down in there, and it was awesome. And we used to go into, the basketball arena and play and just hoop against each other too. We would, Travis, we had unbelievable athletes, you know what I mean? So we just would go in there and hoop and like get conditioning that way and break in there. And we would, lifting weights and stuff like, midnight, just instead of going out drinking, we would do that, and we didn't do that our junior year. We would just go out and drink because we were miserable. So drunk, and then, obviously no underage drinking was going on, obviously.
Right. No, of course not.
Never.
No laws were broken in the making of the podcast.
but we embraced. So I think that any system can like have some kind of success if you can get buy-in. So you have to get buy-in. You have to get everybody on the team to buy-in. That starts with your leaders. So Butch created that, like the little leadership program, or like the leadership committee, and we just kind of held each other accountable. It was like hold the rope or hold the rock, and if you missed, like if you were late and late was like, if you weren't 15 minutes early, you were late. So like now you're going to walk the whole stadium with a rock over your head, so we just created this discipline, and we practiced. The way we practiced was just unbelievable. Like it wasn't it's not sustainable to do that forever, but like, I can't imagine being in better shape than I was in football shape than I was with Butch Jones, because we would do a play and run all the way to wherever the ball was. It could be a 60-yard bomb. We had to run all the way to the ball, hit it. And when we would get back to the line, another offense would be set up, ready to go. Like a whole nother offensive line would be set up, getting ready to run a play. So you have to jump down, and we did everything by hand signal. So you have to like read the hand signal, get lined up, and still go try to make a play. Because the only way we were coming off the field is if you made a play. So this would go on for 15 snaps sometimes. Like, I remember J.K. Schaefer just like lining me up, like,
Here.
go right here. And I'm like, all right. And I would just go, you know? So like that, but when it made games, so you went through those miserable practices at higher ground, and it made you appreciate, like, you get to a game and it was easy. Like, you'd play these games and it was just easy. And we might not be as good as that team, but they're going to know they played us, you know? And that's just the approach we took, you know, and ended up getting to another bowl game and winning that bowl game against Vanderbilt. And the rest was history. You know, it was just a phenomenal time at Cincinnati. And I know a lot of guys are always, I talked to a lot of guys in the league, and they just are like, man, I wish I would have went to this school or that school. I wish I could have transferred the way I loved Cincinnati. Like, I have so much pride being from Cincinnati, and it's just, I just know we're built different, you know, coming from there, you know, especially the Bush Jones guys. 'Cause we just, you know, we just went through some shit that most people wouldn't have made it.
Tell us about those practices with Jason.
Oh,
as you're a younger guy and he's strong as an ox and throwing helmets halfway up the stadium.
So Butch used to make me and Jason, my junior year, so Jason's senior year, before practice, he would make me and Jason set the tone. He'd call it setting the tone. He'd make us just line up across from each other and just run into each other over and over and over again. And then that's how we started practice. It was me and Jason doing that against each other. You know, because we're the only two that could compare. You know what I mean? We could compete and still be friends about it afterwards. You know what I mean? There was no fist fighting and stuff. But Jason, you know, he was like that. Like, if somebody did some bullshit to him, he would rip their helmet off and throw it into the stands. You know, it was just that's just how he was. Like, he was like, you know, but he also he's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around. You know, in a good way. You know, we'd go to Evan Davis's parents' house and play pool basketball, and he'd get so mad, lose his mind. You know, that was the thing about that house. You got to think about that house, right? So just between four of us, so you got Zach Calaris, who's won 2 Grey Cups and 2-time MVP. Then you have Travis Kelce, who's won 3 Super Bowls, Jason, who's won a Super Bowl, and I have a Super Bowl. So we've got 5 Super Bowls and 2 Grey Cups just in that house alone. So you can imagine the kind of competitiveness that would go on, right? Like, a PlayStation controller didn't last a week in that house, you know, because we'd be playing like NBA 2K, and, you know, Zach would just run his mouth the whole time. I would just like want to snap the controller, you know, just snap. You know, the wrestling matches that would happen. It was just like we constantly competed against each other, like, in a healthy way. It was like a brotherhood of competition. You know, that's why you see like these brothers that make it, you know, that's why Travis and Jason are where they are. They competed against each other all the time. They're always competing against each other, but supporting each other in the same way. So, like, that's just kind of the way it was, you know, growing up and living. That's where you turn into a man in that house. You know, it was just 127 West Nixon. I don't know who lives there now, but, you know, there's a lot of history in that house.
The only thing I wonder about is, how is that place not condemned when you guys are done with it?
We used to use beer boxes to patch holes and put plaster over them. Evan's parents owned it.
Yeah, right.
So
they bought the house so you guys could live in it.
Yeah. And we built, like, it was funny because there were 7 of us in the house. Like, it was just unbelievable, man. It was so much fun. I remember Butch one time was like, you guys can't live together anymore. You know, we're like, Butch, we're going to be fine. We're going to clean it up. Like, don't worry. You know, it's like, we just have we had like those giant 50-gallon trash cans. That's what we had for a trash can. And it was just always full.
No bags in it, just a trash
can. Hell no bags. No. Who can afford those? There's no, you know.
Yeah, that's just extra expenses. Like, that's like a case of Natty Light.
One time, so Jason, before he got drafted, you don't know if you remember, he had to have his appendix removed. So that was after our junior season. So my junior season. So me, Travis, and Zach, we went to South Florida for spring break. And Jason couldn't come, obviously, because he had just had his appendix removed. When we left, he was in this big, we had, like, you remember the Orange Bowl chairs we got?
Yeah.
We got those big chairs for the Orange Bowl. So he was like sitting in that chair in the living room. And when we left, and we're like, are you good? Like, you need anything? And he was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good. We come back. He's still in that chair. right? And McDonald's bags all around him. And I'm like, dude, you're about to go to the NFL. What are you doing? Like, that's just how Jason was, man. He was like the freakiest kind of athlete too. Just the athleticism. Yeah. Like I never
It doesn't make any sense when you look at him. He should not be that athletic.
No, and how strong he is too. The strength that he's able to exert. You know, like we were doing squats one time, and you know, him and I would just compete in those and just, you know, try to push each other to go heavier and go heavier. I think we had like, I don't know, 650 pounds on the squat rack. This dude goes all the ass to grass, down and up, like boom. Like I never seen anybody move it like that before. I just was like, how did he do that? And then he was like dealing with high blood pressure. I was like, what the? It's like, dude, what is?
You're an old man and an elite athlete.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, the story, I could go on and on with the stories, you know, from that house, but it was just so much fun. And I always cherish those times.
We'll have you on down the road, and that's all we'll talk about is stories from that house.
I mean, I don't want to incriminate anybody. So
the statute of limitations has expired, I'm sure.
When they were playing each other in the Super Bowl, like reporters were trying to get me to tell stories. It's like, I can't tell. No, I'm not telling you stories. I'm not trying to hurt their brand. All right.
Well, somebody told Jason breaking through the bathroom wall story eventually.
I think I told that one. I think it was me. Yeah. Because it was when Travis got suspended again.
Yeah.
And he was
Jason caught him smoking in the bathroom or something.
Oh, he was so fucking mad. He like that trash can went flying, right? That trash can went flying, and then Travis just ran, didn't say anything, just ran and tried to lock him. He locked himself in the bedroom. He made Travis sleep in his bedroom with him.
Yeah.
So he made him sleep. They put a bed in there and they slept in the same room. And Jason just runs through the fucking drywall into the bathroom.
Like Kool-Aid Man. Oh, yeah.
I heard Travis back there going, "No, I'm sorry." Like, just so funny. We're like, "Jason, don't kill him." You know, we had a lot of fun, man. I can't tell you how much. I mean, it was just so much fun.
That's awesome. You've talked before about, you know, Coach Stripling really teaching you the technique of the game and, you know, his coaching style. But then, and kind of what you just went into, Coach Jones, the mental side, running gassers, just the competitiveness with you and Jason. When you got to camp with the Broncos, I don't want to ask, like, was it easy or was it easier than expected because you were challenged so hard? And did that kind of lead to you getting that starting role as a rookie?
Yeah. When I got here, you know, I was the only person that really wanted me here was Jack Del Rio, right? Yeah. I wasn't on their board at all. They hired Jack, and Jack was like, "That's who we need him. Like, if I'm going to run this 3-4 defense, I need him playing that defensive end spot, that 3-4 defense. So 3 technique, 3 defensive end spot." He's like, he's the one he's got to do it. And I remember the first day of practice, I was like, "Jack, how do you want me to play that?" He said, "Just figure it out." He said, "There is no blueprint." I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Just figure it out." I was like, "Okay." So I just literally I just brought like all the things that I learned from Strip. I just used those in practice, and I was third string when I first walked in here, and then just like every day got better and better and better, and finally let me start running with the ones. And Ryan Clady, who was an All-Pro tackle, I was playing against him every day, and I was winning a lot of those battles. So they were like, "We have to start him." You know, I forced them. That was something that Butch always said: make it so they have no option but to start you. You have to be the only option. Anything else other than you is like going to be a downgrade. And I was like, okay. So that's the way I took that approach. And, you know, I took both of those spots. I took them. It was like, this is my spot. And I held on to it for 8 years. So it was, you know, and then I went to Baltimore and held on to that for 2 years. So it was like, you know, that's just the approach I always took was like, that's my spot. I have to take it, but you have to earn it. You know, when I say take it, you got to earn it. And I did. I earned it with, the way they saw the way I practiced and the way I practiced like I played. So there wasn't like you knew what you were getting. So that's what coaches want, especially any coach. They want to know what they're going to get on game day. And the only way to do that is to practice. And in the NFL, I remember Jason telling me, I was like, what was the first practice like? He's like, dude, we're doing a fucking walkthrough, and that's not a walkthrough. So I remember him saying that. He's like, when they say walkthrough, you fucking go. And I was like, okay. And he was right, man. Like, it's that first snap. Like, we came out. I remember it was in rookie minicamp, the first snap. We had no pads on, just jerseys, no helmets, and like people were bleeding and shit. It was just like, okay, like we're fucking playing football. Like that's what we're doing. So every snap is like an opportunity. Everything, because everything's on film, right? Yeah. So and there's a lot more on the line in the NFL. There's a lot. These are people's jobs and livelihoods, and
guys got wives and kids.
Yeah, people got wives and kids, and it's just like, you're this young guy coming in there trying to take their job. So like, it's just every year there's a draft, right? So there's a new guy trying to take your spot every year. So you have to continue to be that guy every day. And Butch told me that, and Jason told me that, and I remember Connor Barwin would tell me things like, he was like, you can. I remember my sophomore year, after my sophomore year, Connor called me and was like, hey, you could play in this league. Like, you're good enough to do it. So keep going. I was like, all right. And I think the reason why I love Butch so much is because he talked me into not leaving after my junior season. I just had enough of the shit. I was tired of being broke. I was tired of losing. I was like, fucking losing, this sucks. I was like, I can't walk every day. We're squatting and then running 100 110s, just like, just every day we're squatting. And I was like, dude, my legs are crushed. I'm like not going to class. I can't go to class. I can't walk across campus. And he was like, listen, you're going to get drafted, but don't do it. He's like, you'll get drafted so much higher if you stay around for another year. And I did. And he was right. I made the right choice.
You mentioned being broke. What's it like when that first NFL check hits and you go from broke college kid to richer than you've ever imagined?
Well, you're pissed because the government takes half of it. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, what kind of shakedown is this? Like,
you told me I made XXX amount of dollars, and I didn't make.
Like, you're telling me, okay, so my sign bonus was 2.2 million, right, or 2.5 million, or something like that. It was my sign. Like, I only got to see literally half of that, which is to me. I was like, I didn't even really care, but I was still pissed that they took half my money. I was like, I don't even get to write the check. They're just going to take it.
You put it in there first, and then I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, can you just like put it in there first, and I can see? Can I collect some dividends off of this first? Like, what's going on here? So it was like a shock. It was just cool, man. It was nice to like not have to worry about like where, like, okay, I can't eat Chipotle 3 times this week. I only eat it twice. Like silly things like that. It's funny. It's funny now how like, where I'm at in life now, I'll complain about something stupid. And I'm like, dude, I used to have to like scrounge up coins and shit to pay for gas. And, it was like, but that's why you work your ass off. So you don't have to worry about shit like that, and it was just so nice to just, I didn't have any credit built. So like buying things was just like stupid. Like I didn't want to make any huge purchases. Like when I bought my truck, I bought a Raptor, and I was like, thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever, like having a new truck. And I didn't have any credit built up, so like I had to pay cash for it. And I was like, what do you mean I can't? They're like, yeah, you don't have any credit. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, all you've had is a cell phone bill. And I was like, okay, so like just build your credit up for a year, and then you can buy a house. So I just rented for the first year, built my credit, and then I bought a house in my second year, because I was like, if I'm gonna be here for more than 1 or 2 years, it makes sense to buy a house and pay my own mortgage instead of somebody else's. And so learning financial literacy through that whole through the 10 years I played in the league was crucial. Made a lot of mistakes, but nothing that was too crazy. And it was nice, man. It was just nice to have some money in my pocket. To be able to go out and buy dinner for everybody, like that was just like a good feeling,
How hard was it to not get complacent, knowing that you had that comfort, but you knew in the back of your head, like, I need to capitalize on this even more on the football field to get as much out of this as I can?
Yeah, it was. Well, when you're in the locker room with guys that are making, you're in the locker room with like a Peyton Manning and Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware and Elvis Dumerville, and you're in a locker room with guys that are making 10 million plus a year, you're like, you're making pennies compared to what they're making, you know? So you're like, you see their lifestyle. Champ Bailey, you know, like,
Yeah.
And Champ was like the best one to watch. He was a defensive player, but he drove like a big diesel truck to work every day. Didn't wear flashy clothes, but then every now and then you'd see him pull up in like an Aston Martin.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, he's rich.
You're like, oh shit. And then we're like, one time for my rookie year, we played the Raiders on a Thursday night, and he said, hey, because I hadn't had my rookie like dues yet. I'd have to like, usually you have to take him to dinner or something. He's like, we're not gonna make you take us to dinner, but you're gonna have to get us a private jet to Vegas. And I was like, what? And I was like, what is that? And they're like, he's like, figure it out, dude. And I was like, all right. So I called people that like friends of mine and stuff and asked them, you know, hey, like one of them had a friend that was a pilot, and he like connected me with a group here in Denver where the private airport is, I guess. And it's like right by the Broncos facility. I had no clue that there were private airports. I just didn't even know that it was like a thing. Right? And I call him, and he was like, all right, it's going to be, I had to get it for 14 people, right? to and from Vegas. And it was like, back then, now if they told you this price, it'd be a great deal, but it's $15,000. I was like, fuck. I was like, are you serious? And he was like, yeah, dude. He's like, and you'll just bring your card and pay when you get here. So I was like, all right. And when we got there, I was getting ready to pay for it, and Champ came up and gave him a debit card. And was like, I got you, bro. And then we went to Vegas, and I saw his room was like it was in the Aria, and it was like a 2-story room with like a fucking full-time barber and a masseuse in there. And like, I was like, it
was an apartment.
Yeah. I was like, this is insane. What the hell is going on here? And then we go down to gamble, and I stayed in Vaughn's, like, he had this big ass suite with like 4 rooms in it. So I just stayed in there with Vaughn, and he's like, come on, let's go gamble. And I'm like, okay, what are we playing? He's like, we're playing Baccarat. 20,000 a hand. I was like, what the fuck is going on in here? And I was like, this is out of control.
I'm not doing that.
So I was like, I can't do that, dude. Like, I can't, I'm not doing that. So I just watched, and he loses 3 hands in a row. Alden Smith was in there too, playing like 50 grand a hand. I was like, this is out of control. So we ended up, then he's like, let's get out of here. We go to a club, and I see what real money in that league looked like,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I was like, I got to stay in my financial lane first, and then build my bankroll and get to a second contract. And then when you get to that second contract, then you should make enough to where you can live the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. And I was like, you gotta try to ball. It was great because we won a Super Bowl that year, and it was just unbelievable, man. It was so much fun.
What's it like standing on that field, confetti raining down?
It's
Super
like
Bowl champion Derek Wolfe.
When people ask me that, I'm always like, when I was 7 years old and I started playing football, I was 6. When I was 6, and I was like, I'm going to play football. That's what I'm going to do. I watched Reggie White win a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers. I was a huge Brett Favre, Reggie White fan. Like, loved that crew. I was more of a fan of certain players, never like an actual team. But I loved Reggie White. Like, I just loved the way he played the game. And he was wearing his jersey and his pad still, and he put the Super Bowl T-shirt over that and was running around the field with the Lombardi trophy. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And I was like, imagine when you're a kid at that age, when you're like, you see an astronaut or you see a firefighter or like whatever it is, and you're like, I want to do that. That looks awesome, And I got to do it, and I like accomplished that and got to that and I got to put that T-shirt on over my pads, and I got to hold the Lombardi out on the field and run around with it and be a major contributor in the game, and be like a key part of that defense, and like just being part of like one of the best defenses to ever play the game. Just like,
yeah,
it was surreal, man. It was very surreal, and you don't appreciate it till you're done, because in the moment I'm just like, well, I want to get to the next one. I was like, right after the game, I was like, I knew that we were going to have an opportunity to come back and try to win another one, because that defense mostly was going to be together again. So I knew, like, okay, I signed a contract there, thinking we were going to have a good quarterback coming. I knew Peyton was probably going to retire, so I thought, they're not going to waste this defense with some shitty quarterback, are they? No, they wouldn't. That's John Elway. He wouldn't do that. Well, they did. And wasted that defense, decimated that defense for the next 4 years. And it was, it was still fun, but it sucked, because when you go from like competing for Super Bowls for 4 straight years to like, well, I hope we win 5 games. It's like,
maybe we'll draft a quarterback this year.
Yeah, maybe we'll draft not Paxton Lynch. Like, what the fuck, man? That's the frustrating part about the NFL is like, you have no control over that. So they draft guys. I'm sitting there and I'm like, why would they draft a guy in my position? They wasted a pick because he's not going to play. It's like, sorry, but he's not going to play. I'm not going to allow that. Right. So, yeah, man, it was a hell of a ride. I had a lot of fun.
Did you ever intervene when the rookies tried to act like the vets in Vegas, or?
I mean, not really. I just like, I don't know. The veterans treated me like with respect and were cool to me. Like one time
they're terrified of you.
Well, I don't know about that. Peyton talked Brandon Stokely into going into my room and dumping in training camp and dumping a damn big ass thing of water on my bed, and I caught him red-handed doing it. It was like him and I don't know who else was in there with him, but they were like rats, like scurrying out of there. And I was like, oh, like we walked into the hotel, which is like a bed bug ridden hotel for training camp that we stay in, right by, literally my house is like 3 miles up the road. Why can't I just sleep in my bed? It's just whatever. I'll do whatever. But we come in there and all the vets had our clothes. All of the rookies' clothes were out of their rooms and in the middle of the lobby in a big pile. All of our clothes. And I just walked by it. I didn't even care. I was so tired. I was like, fuck those clothes. I don't care about them. And I was like, I'm going straight to the room. And I heard guys talk about, oh, my bed's all wet. And I was like, I get in there and I caught them doing it. So I thought I thought that they didn't get it. And as soon as I like laid down on the bed, I started feeling the water seep through. And I was like, no. But they did. They got one bucket of it onto the bed because they were filling up in a bathtub and bringing it out and dumping it, And so I just sleep on the floor that night. And that was just like, that was, and then I think like 2 days after that, I get done with practice and take my cleats and socks off, and my feet are just like stained purple. So they put like ink powder in my cleats, like silly shit. But I had just like laughed it off. I never acted like an idiot about it. And that's right. What they just want you to be a good sport about it. And that's, if you're a good sport, it's all good. Like it got to the point after that, the guy in Miami, Jonathan Martin or whatever. I forget his name. The offensive lineman that was
yeah.
He like made a big fuss about they were only I know the Pounceys really well. We trained together in the off seasons and stuff together, so I knew those guys really well. And he was like, dude, this kid was like, he would not cooperate at all. Like we'd tell him like, hey, we need breakfast sandwiches on this day. Just stop and get the breakfast sandwiches. It's not a big deal. So they were like, he wasn't doing it. And they just like threw his stuff in the cold tub and stuff like that. It wasn't like as bad as he tried to make it out to be. But ever since that happened, like the coaches were all like, hey, let's chill out. Like we're not doing any of this hazing thing anymore. And then eventually the haircuts were even gone, that was so much. It was like, that's like a part. It's like that's part of it, man. Like you're going to get a goofy
rite of passage.
Yeah. It's like a rite of passage. You're going to get a goofy haircut in training camp and just deal with it. Like, it's going to be fun, embrace it. Because if the guys didn't like you, they wouldn't even talk to you. So it was, I just treated those guys like, if you were cool, I was cool, just be cool, just be cool about it.
It's the key in life. If people are messing with you and it doesn't bother you, they will stop messing with you.
They'll stop messing
because it's not fun.
Yeah.
You're not impacted.
You're not all like, oh, please don't shave my hair. Don't cut my hair. Okay, well, your eyebrows are gone then. That was like, okay, fine, you cut my eyebrows, so it was like, all right, we'll compromise here. It was like, that's how it was, and it was just not a big deal. And unfortunately some people, can't handle that. So it is what it is.
Keegan's been here a year. We've been hazing him ever since the day he got hired.
It adds character.
Yeah.
Builds character.
Yeah, it adds character.
Healthy bullying is good for you.
Oh yeah.
Take us through the decision to retire, the decision to walk away. How difficult is that on you? I'm sure your body is like, yes, please, but your brain is probably like, I could probably make another $8-10 million this year if I wanted to.
Oh yeah, I could have. I think I probably could have. Like, I never wanted to be that. I saw those guys, man. I just hung around. Like, dude, call it. Like, how much money do you need? You know, like call it. Like, you're just kind of like hanging around. You know, it's like, to me, I don't want to play. If I can't play at the highest level possible, then I'm not going to do it. You know, it's just like, I'm just not going to do it. And I had ripped both of the labrums off the bone in my hips, and I had already had neck surgery, and both elbows dislocated bad. And it was just like, I was in Baltimore. My family was here. I had a young daughter. I had 10 years under my belt. I was like, you know what, man, I'm done. Like, I had enough. That whole COVID bullshit, like, I had enough of it, you know, like all that. I wouldn't get vaccinated. So I was being segregated from the team. So like the best part about football, which is the camaraderie, I didn't even get to experience that for 2 years. Like, it was just like, man, this sucks. You know, I was like, I'm over it. Like, I just was over it.
So it makes what Jason was doing at year 13 even the more incredible, wasn't it? Because he was still the best center in the league 13 years in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, you know, at what cost, you know, at this point, it's like, you know, I love being in Baltimore because we were winning games, and I knew we had a chance to be like, you know, to compete for Super Bowls. And it was a tough decision to just like call it, but I was like, man, you know, there's so much more to life than just football, you know, especially when you have kids. It's just like, you know, I don't want to miss any more of their life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. You're
so
going to tell us a story. Go ahead, Keegan.
Was the hunting thing, was that something that you kind of dabbled with throughout your whole career, or was it like you retired, you realized you needed something to do and you just went all in with it?
Well, I did need something to do, but you know, I bow hunted when I was a kid, and then I just I re-sparked the love for it when I was in Baltimore. Actually, I re-sparked the love because we had so much time on our hands with the COVID stuff, like that. I was like, I need to like pick up another hobby. So I brought my bow out there with me and would just deer hunt, you know, out of tree stands and stuff. And, you know, I just like fell back in love with it. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do when I'm done. I want to just bow hunt, and, you know, and I could not, I always dreamed of killing big elk, like Western hunting, you know, putting on a 12-mile hike and packing a big bull out. Like, that was just a dream of mine. And, whenever I retired that first September, it was nice to have something to like take my mind off, because I was missing the game. You know, I was like, fuck, man. Like, when July hits, I'm getting ready I'm like, I start turning into a different savage because I just want to, you know, go be physical. And I have that, you know, that's why I do jiu-jitsu still, because I can be physical and, you know, get that kind of camaraderie of a gym. And then, the way I train for backcountry hunting, you know, is another, it's something I'm training with a purpose. So it gives me daily purpose to like get up and go train and not just sit around and hang out with my kids, you know, like get up, take my kids to school, go train, you know, come home, you know, podcast, you know, because I have my own podcast as well, the Wolf Fontaine podcast that we just revamped that. So it's going to be good to go. We just built a new studio and everything. So that's what I'm doing. And then I invested my money well and smart with it. So I don't really have to do anything if I don't want to, but I feel like if you're not growing, you're dying. So I'm just trying to even if I'm growing something that's not, you know, I'm not doing the hunting to make money, but you know, it's something that keeps me busy and gives me drive and keeps me in a certain community, and it's good.
So then take us through the mountain lion situation. And did you have any idea that was going to blow up and be like a national viral story?
No, I had no clue. So that was a friend of mine that took me, that he had the hounds, and he was like, hey dude, like, you ever kill a mountain lion? I was like, I never even like thought to kill a mountain lion, you know, we didn't have them in Ohio, you know what I mean? I just thought about, but I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome to do it, you know? And he was like, he explained to me the process. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm down. He was like, all right, so what's going to happen is in January, or when we get a good snow, I'll just call you and be like, hey, let's go cut some tracks. And I was like, all right, cool. So he calls me and I was like, he's like, hey, get up here at like 5 a.m. and let's go cut tracks. And I'm like, all right. And what cutting tracks means you're just driving around, hounds in the back, looking for fresh tracks coming across the road in fresh snow. And we had about 2 feet of fresh snow. And I was like, we found some smaller ones and some sub-adult males and stuff, and we're looking for like a big mature tom. So we see these tracks, and he's like, whoa, like from the car, he says, whoa. And we get out, and I was just like, all I saw was these I'd never seen mountain lion tracks. Like I'd seen them, when we were, elk hunting and stuff, and I'd seen them out like some tracks, but nothing like this. This thing was huge track. I mean, it was like, this huge mountain lion track. Like I put my hands are big, right? And my hand was like barely fit, and it barely covered it. So I was like, this thing's huge. And he was like, he had a full-grown mule deer that he was eating on up underneath. He drug it across a creek and up over a fence and buried it under a tree. These things weigh 300 pounds. These mule deer weigh 300 pounds. So he was going back and forth from his porch to under there, and so we had to cut the tracks on him. We had to go through private, so we had to get permission to do that, because it's private land and then it goes to public. And to go around, it would have been like an 8-mile trek to get around, and who knows where that lion is by then,
Right.
Dogs are going to lose him, by the time we get around. You might not find him. So we started calling people in the area that live on that road, trying to because we knocked on the door, no answer, whatever. And so we get these stories about like how all these mountain lions in the area are like causing problems, like eating dogs and, people staring into people's windows at night and stuff like that. Like, and they are like, how cats are. They're creepy. Oh, yeah. They do creepy shit all the time. They're just how they are. And I was like, oh man, I was like, that's crazy. She's like, I don't know if it's that lion, but there's a couple big ones around here that are like, they cause problems. They'll eat your dogs, and they'll there's been kids down the road have been attacked. Like all this stuff has gone on in the area. And there's a lot of mountain lions in Colorado. So I wasn't surprised to hear that, like, they're causing problems, because you see them just running around town sometimes. You're just like a mountain lion down in town. It just happens, black bears and stuff. There's predators all over the place. So, because they're hard to hunt, man. Like these lions are hard. If you don't have hounds, your chances, you're just gonna get lucky, maybe, if you're lucky, especially with a bow. Like you're not gonna spot and stalk a mountain lion with a bow. Like there are guys that have done it, but like they're just a different breed of human, I guess, that can do that. But because they see you long before you see them. So finally we're like, you know what, dude, we could not get a hold of him. So we're driving down, and we're just going to take the long way around and try to get on those tracks. Cause I don't have any experience doing it. So I'm like, I don't know how big this thing really is. And he's like, dude, this thing is huge. I'm telling you, like, he is huge. This track is huge. And I'm like, okay. He's like, this might be one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. And I was like, he's been doing this for like 20 years. Right. So he knows his shit. Right. And he's like, he's not a guide. He's not guiding me really. He's just like a friend taking me out to hunt, And I was like, all right, well, let's go the long way then. He's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, let's go. And we're driving down the road, and that dude that owns the place comes out, and he's like waving his arms at us. And we're like, dude, what's up? And he's like, you guys see these mountain lion tracks? And we're like, yeah, we've been trying to get a hold of you for an hour. And he was like, you guys want to go after him? I was like, hell yeah, we do. And he's like, all right, go ahead. And he's like, we were like, yeah, man, we knocked on your door. He's like, oh, that was you? He's like, I thought that was the lion walking around on the porch again. He said he walks around on the porch and stares in his windows. So he was like denned up underneath his porch. You know what I mean? Like that's where he was like kind of hunting from. And then he would go back up into the mountains. Cause this is at that, where that house is, it's like 9,000 feet elevation. And at the top of that ridge is 11,000. So it's like a 2,000 foot climb to get up there. And it's like miserable country, So yeah. We get the dogs on him, and he was like, it's going to be quick. I'm telling you, he's probably right at the top of this hill. I was like, no way. Like, this would be awesome if he's just right at the top of the hill. No, he was not right at the top of the hill. We went up over the hill, dropped down over into this drainage, which I could have just stayed up on the ridge and walked across the ridge. But instead I just like bombed off the other side, because we were like gung ho on this thing. And I'm talking like up to my neck in snow, just crawling through it. And just sweating so hard, and it's cold and it's snowing, and he's like a mountain goat, so he's like way ahead of me, and I can hear, like, I just keep hearing him getting further and further from me. So I'm like, dude, I have no clue where I'm at. I'm like, I'm just gonna keep following tracks. So I just followed tracks. Finally, I see that he climbs back up to the top, and I was like, no. So I had to climb all the way back up, and then he calls me, and he goes, hey, I'm sending you a pin. Come straight to the pin. I'm like, okay. Sends me a pin. I go straight to the pin, and when I say straight to the pin, like that, I side hilled and on my butt basically all the way down, like ripped my pants to pieces, like fell and rolling, like I'm carrying my bow in my hand, so I'm just like trying to make sure that thing doesn't get messed up, and I end up on the road, and I'm like, no, I'm on the road. And he's like, he calls me again. He's like, where are you at, dude? Like, we got this thing treed. Like, let's go. And I was like, dude, I'm on the road. And he was like, oh, no. He's like, you got to come back up like 900 yards. And I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. So he sent me the real pen this time. Thank you. Finally. So like it took me an hour and a half at least to go 900 yards, at least an hour and a half, probably 2 hours to go 900 yards because my body, I was full body cramping. So like I would take like 3 crawls and then have to stop because I would be cramping. 3 crawls and stop, and it was like not crawling on flat ground, like crawling up like this, and rocky and slippery. And finally, I see him, and he's laughing his ass off, and he's like, you're almost here, bud. And I was like, where is he? He's like, look up. And I turn over and I look up, and this thing is like 10 feet above me, just going like hissing at me. And I was like, oh shit. And I was like, is it a big one? He's like, he's huge, bud. Like, get up here. Come on. I was like, all right. So I got up there like another 10 yards, drew my bow back and shot that mountain lion right in the chest. And he fell out of the tree, and he was dead when he hit the ground. And we went down there. We went down there to him. Well, I like slid on my butt down there to him. And he was like, dude, you gotta pick this thing up and take a picture with it. And I was like, dude, let's just get him out of here. And I didn't want to take a picture. I was so tired and exhausted that I still had to go do the radio show. I was doing a radio show at the time. I still had to do a 4-hour radio show that I was like already running late for. And I was like, I'm already late, dude. Like, we gotta get out of here. He's like, dude, I'm telling you, just take a picture. He's huge. I was like, all right, fine. When I went to pick this thing up, like, I know what 200 pounds feels like. You know, I know what like a 200-pound.
You've thrown around 200 pounds many, many times.
Yeah. So I know what that feels like. So I'm like, dude, this thing's like 200 pounds. And he's like, no, he's not. He's like, no way. Like, they don't really get that big, you know? And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, this thing's 200 pounds. And I had to like readjust, and like every ounce of strength I had left to like pick that thing up, and his head like hit me in the forehead. And so I like knocked his head sideways, and I was like, take the fucking picture. That's why if you I'm like, I'm just like stink eyeing him. And he's like, hold on. His fingers were wet, so he like, it wasn't working. And I was like, take the fucking picture. Takes the picture. I drop him. He comes over and picks him up, and he's like, oh my, he's like, dude, he might be 200 pounds. You know, he might be bigger than that. Like, he just was like, he's at least 180. You know, he's like, he's at least 180 pounds, which is like a huge mountain lion, you know, because their average is like 140. You know, so it's a huge lion, huge tom, mature. We got him out, and I put him in my pack, and I crawled backwards back down where I came from. And it took forever. I fell off like I was like trying to take the same way that I came up. And no, I like couldn't see where I was going. Obviously, I was just crawling back. I'm crawling on my hands and knees backwards with a mountain lion draped over my back. And I fell off this thing and had to repack the lion in there. And like, it was just so bad. And we get down, finally I get to the truck, and I'm just like so relieved that it's over. And the next day I'm skinning it out so I can take it to CPW to check it in, and then take the meat to get processed. Because you're going to eat that mountain lion, right? It's good eating. It's like white meat pork, but sweeter. So you want to process all that meat because it's going to be good. So I post a picture while I'm doing that, because I'm like, I got to post this picture. It's sweet, you know, because I had my wife clean up all the blood in it. It's just blood everywhere, you know? So I had her clean up all the blood in the picture. And then I was like, I'm going to post this. This is sweet. You know, so I posted it. And like the next 24 or 48 hours was just like people were losing their mind over this thing. I was like, they're like, he poached a puma, and I was like, like it was just really cool, man. It was and I think a lot of people in my position would have shied away from that, and I was like, you know what, like I have the voice, like I love hunting and I love what it's about, and I did everything the right way. And it is important for the populations of all the animals up there to manage all the herds,
Sure.
even especially mountain lions. We've actually brought them; they're thriving in Colorado. So I just took it. I was like, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to step into this position of like, I'm not going to shy away and be scared of the anti-hunters, because they can, say and do. They were threatening my family and doing all this other bullshit, and it was like. Yeah, I was like, you guys could say and do what you want, but you're not gonna scare me. Like, I'm not afraid of you. Like, I'm not gonna shy away. I did everything right. I did everything by the book. Everything was ethical. Made an ethical shot. Processed all the meat. Like, it was funny because I posted a video of she was 4 at the time, or 3.5 at the time, but I posted a video of her eating some of that mountain lion. She's like, this mountain lion's yummy. Like, she loved it. I just was like, I'm not gonna shy away from you guys, and like, I just fully embraced it. And it was really cool. A lot of cool stuff came from that. I ended up doing a piece on a spot with Tucker Carlson, and Kid Rock and I were already friends. So like he was like, hey, Ted Nugent wants to call you, and it was just really cool to get a call from Ted Nugent, and then
Rogan had to change things a little bit.
Well, the Rogan interview was cool because I got to I'd always thought it would be cool to go on his show, and he hit me up and was like, hey, dude, you want to come on and we'll talk about your life and everything? I was like, yeah. So, we did like 3.5 hours of just like hanging out. It was pretty cool. I went to his show the night before and was hanging out with Roseanne and Ron White and Tony Hinchcliffe. And Tony Hinchcliffe was there. Tony Hinchcliffe is from Youngstown.
Yeah.
So it was just like pretty cool to be around that crew. And, everything kind of changed from there. It was just, I just fully embraced it and getting to tell stories about me taking mushrooms before games and stuff like that. And, people are like, no way. I was like, dude, I'm telling you, it made me better. I did.
You're dialed in.
Dialed.
Like, you are locked in.
Dialed in, so it was like berserker mode, just so the Vikings used to do. They used to eat some mushrooms and then go fight a battle.
All right, man, we're gonna get you out of here. We greatly appreciate it. I still, one day, I know the two famous boys. Jason is going to come on at some point. Travis, he's a little more difficult to.
It's hard to just
wrangle
getting a hold of Travis. Getting a hold of Travis is just like impossible.
But at some point, I want to have you, Jason, Zach, like whoever we can from that little group all at once, and let you guys just go.
Yeah, that would be. It would be so good.
That's
what we were supposed to do.
That's
what we were supposed to do on the New Heights show. We were supposed to do that, but like Zach's one of his kids had a birthday or something, so it kind of fell through. But whatever, we got it. I think we should definitely do it because it would be great.
Here's how he got me, Derek. So I asked him to come on the podcast. He says yes. This is right after he won his second Grey Cup. And he's like, yeah, like, I'm going to be here with my wife, but no problem. Like, I'll come on. So then it's like that afternoon, and I hit him up and I'm like, hey, we still good for tonight? And he's like, man, I think I'm in trouble. We are at my wife's sister's house on vacation. And I was just going to excuse myself for like an hour, 2 hours to come do the podcast. And I told my wife that, and I was like, of course she said no. We're at her sister's house on vacation.
Yeah,
the end of the football season.
Yeah, there's no chance he's allowed to go do that. No.
What in your brain made you think yes was the answer there?
Because we're men.
Right. Yeah, sure. She won't care.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm starting to learn, though. I'm starting to learn. I'm starting to figure out. Because I do that same shit. I do stupid shit like that all the time with my wife. And she's like, no, you're not doing it.
No, that is absolutely not allowed.
No, we're on vacation. Like, relax. And I'm like, okay.
All right, man. I will hit you back up when we get that thing organized, because I think that would be maybe the best piece of content in Bearcats history.
Oh, it'd be so
Have
good.
all you guys telling
So
stories from that
It
era.
would be so good. I mean, it was so, there's so many good stories too, wholesome stories too. So,
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have Pike on and you guys can bully him.
oh, I would love to. Would love to.
Did you ever hear what Steve Smith said about him?
No.
So it was right when UC was going to the playoff, and they had Steve Smith on his radio show because he does a radio show here. And they asked him what his nickname was, and he said in Carolina they called him Soda Pop. And like, Soda Pop? He's like, yeah, you shake it up, and then when you open it, it sprays everywhere, and then real quick it goes flat.
That's funny.
Like, wow. All right, man. Well, we greatly appreciate it, and we loved having you on. It was awesome, and we will stay in touch and get together and do this again soon.
Yep, sounds good, brother.
There you go.
Thanks,
That's
man.
Derek Wolfe, former Bearcats legend and Super Bowl champion. But we'll see you. We'll be back later tonight with the BCJ podcast. We will see you then. Brought to you by the Holy Grail, right here on Bearcat Journal.